Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and this is the bonus upload that gets us into Saturday Nightmares live from New York. I hope to see you there, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Before we jump into these terrifying encounters, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this night-ending bonus upload, shall we?
Today's first encounter. This happened a couple of years ago. At the time, I was 17 years old. Myself and 3 of my friends had been up to a cabin in North Carolina, in the mountains. We were celebrating the end of our junior year of high school. It was just us 4. First night we get there, we hear some noises from outside of the cabin at about 1:30 in the morning. I don't want to look outside to see what it is, but my friends did, and said they couldn't see anything. So I looked out and couldn't see anything either. The next morning we go outside and saw some footprints. Footprints like I have never seen before and hope never to see again. Anyway, fast forward to the night. We decide to go outside and have a campfire. We're 17, 18-year-old kids, joking around, laughing, having fun, enjoying the summer, when we hear a growl from the woods, and the shrubbery and smaller plants around us start moving like they are in the wind, even though there is no wind. I look behind me and see 2 amber-colored eyes staring. I turned to my friend and asked if he saw it as well. He looks at me pale in the face and asks, "What the hell is that thing?" I respond, "I don't know what it is. All I know is it's massive and I don't want to find out." So we run inside the cabin and tell the other people that were there what we saw. They don't believe us, naturally, so they look outside and it's standing there about 9.5 feet tall. Grayish black hair, very muscular with these massive claws and huge fangs. So they run and shut the door and we close the blinds and try to forget about the thing. Later that night, I went to bed. I looked out my window, and it was out there staring directly at me. Needless to say, I didn't get any sleep that night. The next day, we packed up and left, not wanting to spend another night in those woods. This was the first time I've told anybody about this because I didn't think anybody would believe what I saw that day. That image of that creature staring into my eyes from my bedroom window, it still haunts me to this day. Today's second encounter is a reptilian encounter. Unionville, Missouri, April 5th, 2016, roughly 3:15 in the morning. Over the last few years, I've been conducting Bigfoot research. I have a large family of them here and interact with them quite often, try to record them and figure out why they do what they do. But the evening was just kind of off. My dogs were afraid of something that was outside. They have become used to the Bigfoot family. They don't even bark at them anymore. When I stepped out on my deck to give a listen and see if I could record it, it was dead silent. This never happens, where there was no crickets, tree frogs, no bullfrogs, not even whippoorwillows. No neighbors' dogs barking, not even the cattle were making noise, and the Bigfoot didn't respond to my calls. And that is unusual, as it is when they are headed on my way to where they go to sleep in the day. When they respond, I usually take out a treat for them and leave it by the barn. While watching television, I caught some movement from something that moved fast between the house and the yard light. My roommate said he caught a glimpse of something light-colored and very fast. The dogs were trembling and acting out of sorts. That's when we armed up. I was looking out front and my roommate was next to the computer, froze, like in a trance. He didn't respond when I asked him if he saw anything. I touched his arm and he snapped out of it and said it looked at him. His arms broke out in goosebumps, and the hair on the back of his neck was standing up, as was the hair on his arms. He does not scare easily, especially after the many encounters he has had with Bigfoot. He said he saw a face in the window and it was not a Bigfoot, and the eyes did not reflect any eye shine, like when the Bigfoot look in at us. The feeling was that there was something sinister out there. That's when I said, screw it. I'm a man, and I will not be held hostage in my own home by anything. My feeling was that a direct challenge was how to best deal with this thing. I told R to keep my dog safe and handed him an assault rifle. I stood out on the front porch with my .357 Magnum in hand and prayed to God that would cast his blessing upon me and guide my hand. I called upon the power of Jesus to banish this demon and said I would fight it with every bit of my being. I figured if it was my time, I would rather go out fighting like a man than cowering like a sheep. So the challenge was made as I filled my mind with anger as a way to protect myself. I came back in, and after about 90 minutes, things returned to normal, and the forest sounds had returned. My friend had first described this thing as looking kind of gray alien, but different. It was light-colored, had large eyes with a slit for a pupil, and its face had a wide mouth with thin lips. He described the nose area like on the face of Voldemort from Harry Potter films. So we looked at what people call reptilians, and he found an image that was really close to what he saw for a few seconds. The following night, the forest was normal again. I'm not sure how many of these things there were, but everything was quiet for at least a half a mile. Today's third part of the upload is a subscriber submission Dogman encounter. 2003. While walking to a friend's house, I was met by a large canid coming out of the woods in front of me at about 50 feet. It looked like a combination between a bull mastiff, Rottweiler, and Doberman. Only this animal is between 3 and 4 feet at the shoulder while on all fours. It seemed to be at least 3 times the size of a mastiff. It was a solid-looking animal. I watched it as it covered the 50 feet in less than 5 seconds, and it was to me. It got right up to me and lunged forward to attack me using only its mouth. I had no weapons or no good defense alternative, so I did the only thing that popped into my mind. I turned my body to the right and rammed my arm as deep down this thing's throat as it could go, which was a few inches past my elbow. It must have been a juvenile, as it was inexperienced and its teeth weren't extremely sharp. I barely got a scratch on me after jamming my arm down this thing's gullet. I then grabbed it around the neck with my free right arm and began to try to choke it with all my strength. I squeezed for a good 2 to 3 minutes. The tension in its body relaxed, and then I slowly stood up and shook the goo off of my left arm. Talk about the smell of death. It only took a minute or so for the creature to get back on all fours. It stood there gagging for a moment. Then it locked eyes with me. I gave it this look of, "You bastard," then it turned and ran off back into the woods. Both of its front feet were actually hands, as it had 5 long fingers on each hand, although the claw-like nail at the end was less than 2 inches. I didn't get a good look at its back feet. It had the most golden yellow eyes I had ever seen. Again, this event took place nearly at dusk, so I didn't make out colors well, other than it was dark, not jet black, but a very deep brown coloration. If I had to guess, I would say it was 6.5 feet long, snout to base of its tail. This one had a longer tail, about 2.5 feet. Also, it felt like it weighed 200 pounds. It was probably heavier than that, but I once again was lucky and was pretty strong in my younger days and was able to stalemate this attack. I have not shared this story with very many people, and all I ask is that we keep it in this group until I decide that I really want to share it. People have a tendency to think that you are crazy when you tell them you defeated a werewolf in hand-to-hand combat. Laugh out loud. It appears that there may be a living, breeding population of them in this spot, and I intend on finding out this summer. I'm going to email this guy and see if he'll come on and share this with us in his own words, because I'd really like to hear exactly how he tells the story, and I'd like to ask him a little bit more about the population or reason why he feels like there is a population of these things on his land. I'll keep you guys in the loop. Today's fourth part of the upload is a reptilian encounter. I loudly proclaim my interest in the subject of encounters with the unknown to pretty much everyone I become acquainted with. Sooner or later one of them comes up to me, generally when no one else is around, and tells me a story. I figure I'll share some of them here. A few years ago, 2009 or so, at a family gathering, my brother casually mentioned to my sister and I that his wife had seen a UFO and that it scared the crap out of her. When my sis and I approached her, she wouldn't talk about it. So we decided on New Year's Eve to get her nice and buzzed, and then to try to get the story out of her again. Well, she was more than buzzed when we brought it up, and you could see her face change, becoming upset. We kept at it, trying to coax it out of her until she finally told us the following. My brother and her live in a very rural part of Naples, Florida, near where my mother's house is. She woke up one morning from a nightmare, coincidentally, about UFOs, which is why I suspect this whole thing might have been some sort of waking dream, and went out onto her porch for a cigarette. Outside, parked in the street in front of her house, was a glowing saucer-shaped ship. Coming out of it, dressed in what she describes as combat armor and holding weapons, all were a group of 7-foot-tall reptilian humanoids. She said they were very massively built and evil-looking. She started backing away in terror when one of them turned to her. Then in her head, she said it didn't move its mouth. She heard, "Go back inside, we're not here for you." Then the figures crossed the street to the house across from hers. She turned and went back into her house and hid, not daring to look outside for a good while. Apparently her daughter was also involved in this sighting, but this is as much as a story as my sister and I could get out of her. I know this sounds ridiculous, but if you heard her tell it, and saw how she sobered up very quickly while doing so, it might creep you out as much as it did us at the time. At one point she broke into tears and hysteria, so we asked her to stop and never approach the subject with her again. We've never asked the daughter about it. My brother says he slept through the whole thing. Today's fifth part of the upload is a canine cryptid encounter. My childhood home is very haunted. Both my skeptic parents were turned into believers in this house, and me, being a respective child, went through a lot especially. There's various stories and things I went through in that house. Most very common spirit experiences like apparitions, things flying off the shelves, TVs turning on by themselves at night, etc. But this thing was different, and it sounds childish and made up, but this is really what I went through. The one that has stuck with me and baffled me most was this dog. For context, and for the skeptics, behind the headboard of my bed was a window. My bedroom was on the second floor, and there was a small ledge outside the window to protect smokers in the backyard from rain, but It was impossible for anything besides a bird to get on there. Regularly, there would be this dog watching me. It looked kind of like a Doberman Pinscher, huge, except it was solid black, and had almost glowing red eyes. It wouldn't bark, and it wouldn't even really move. It would just sit there watching me outside my window, right behind my headboard of my bed. I didn't dare to stare at it too long most nights. I would just press myself against the headboard so that it couldn't see me. I told my parents about it. They assumed that it was just a dream. Sometimes I'd run into their room, and of course, when they went to go check, it was gone. One day my mom went to the backyard at night, and she looked up to my window and saw it, and then it just disappeared. She told me this much later in life so that it wouldn't scare me, and we moved out not too long after. I don't know what this thing was, if it was protecting me, if it was a hellhound or a demon or what. I've never researched it either because I'm too scared of what I'll come up with. But I have a hunch of knowing that the next time I see this, it will be right before I die. Today's sixth part of the upload is a reptilian encounter. My friend who worked in an underground base, who was doing sheetrock, was down on what he thinks approximately the 30th level underground. These bases are perhaps 30 to 35 stories deep, ground scrapers as opposed to skyscrapers. As I say, they are not just mine shafts. These are huge, giant facilities, many city blocks in circumference, able to house tens of thousands of people. One of them, the Yano facility, we were told by the county fire department director and county fire department chief, who had to go in there and look at a minor fire infraction. There's a 400-car parking lot on the first level of the Yano facility, but cars never come in and out. Those are cars that they use inside. Okay, so a very interesting situation down there. Our guy was doing sheetrock on the 30th floor, maybe the 30th floor underground. He and his crew are working on a wall, and over to the right is an elevator door. The elevator door opens, and a kind of reflex action, you look. And he sees three guys, two of them human engineers that he had seen before. And between them, a guy that stood 8.5 feet tall, green skin, reptilian features, extra long arms, wearing a lab coat and holding a clipboard. I tend to believe the story because, first of all, because we have other stories like this, but more importantly, because he walked off the job that very day, and he was getting paid a great deal of money. If you're basically a sheetrock kind of guy, if you can do sheetrock in a place like that, then you get paid way more than standard sheetrock wages. You can count on it. So he walked off the job. His buddy on the same crew turned into an alcoholic shortly after. This is an extremely upsetting thing. You know, it wasn't like this alien jumped out and bit his head off or anything. It was just standing there for a few moments. The doors closed. He has a feeling that the elevator was malfunctioning, otherwise he never would have seen what he expects is an accident. Today's seventh part of the upload is a canine cryptid encounter. My friends and I have been going to Mount Misery for years, since high school really, to get a scare. We used to read up on paranormal on the computer and get freaked out and curious, so we would drive around. A few times it was not paranormal that scared us, but real people. We had a car riding so close behind us that I had to speed up, and they followed us a long way at too high of a speed for winding roads. We were scared, and we were about to call the police when they all of a sudden veered off and left us alone on the pitch-black road again. Another time, we were on Sweet Hollow Road when a truck stopped dead in front of us and shut its headlights off. If you've been there, you know that this road is only about a car and a half wide. You have to be careful and move over at a stop to pass each other. We didn't know if he was going to shoot us or what, I mustered the courage to try and fit around him, which I did, and slowly we wedged by. He stared at us the whole time and stayed there until he vanished out of sight from our rearview mirror. The only paranormal thing that has happened to me there was driving up to a fallen tree at the beginning of the woods at Mount Misery. 2 friends of mine were with me, 1 girl, 1 guy. We were just driving, talking, when out of the corner of my eye I saw a big black dog running down one of the driveways. He went right past the garbage cans on the curb, and that's when I realized he was not stopping. Scared I may hit him, I jammed on the brakes. That's when we heard a thud. He ran smack into the side of the car, and I saw his body on the ground through the window. We were so freaked, I made the guy friend get out and see if he was dead. He walked around to my side of the car, looked confused, walked around to the back of the car, hopping in, and said, "Go." I listened, heading toward Sweet Hollow Road to leave instead of continuing to the woods. We were silent until I turned onto Old Country Road. That's when he told me there was nothing there, no dog. It was unbelievable. I know what I saw. We all heard the thud, but nothing. It was crazy, weird. I felt saddened. I don't know why. We didn't go back there for a while. A few times we went. We even got out and walked. I don't recommend that. It's dangerous to walk in the woods and in any area at night. Wanted to share my stories. It's such an intriguing area. It has history. No matter what we've experienced there, it's always drawn us back. You gotta love New York and its creepiness. Today's final encounter is a reptilian encounter. Hello y'all, in 1982 I was 27 years old. I'd just been working out with a friend and left her apartment. I was heading out to go home or swimming at the community pool. I can't remember that. She lived at Deer Park Crescent, south of St. Clair, off of Avenue Road. It was summer, as I remember wearing summer clothes. As I turned onto Avenue Road from Deer Park Crescent, I saw a car coming along my left side. It seemed awfully close somehow, so it drew my attention. It was a nondescript sedan. Then this car made a right turn in front of me at about 50 feet. When I looked in the car, I saw 2 men looking right at me, and they were dressed up like reptilians. I started laughing because I thought perhaps they were going to a costume party, though it was not even near Halloween. I could see their snouts, but they were mostly in the shadow. But I definitely saw they were reptilian looking. I thought it was funny that they both wore the same costume. Then, after a few seconds, the car continued on in the same direction it had turned. When I got up to the area, I looked to my right after them, when I suddenly discovered that there was no road, but a high iron fence with no gate. It was at the back of my friend's apartment building, where there were pylons and curbs and all sorts of things you couldn't drive over. I was very confused and, like most people, confronted with very strange things. I went into denial and kind of thought not too much about it. A couple days later, though, I told my friend about the experience. She said that a couple of nights before, in the middle of the night, that there had been some terrible screams from a woman on the street below where I had been. She said that the neighbors thought it was someone being murdered, perhaps. I don't know if the police were called or what happened. Perhaps she saw the same thing I did, and maybe they did something to her.
Well, there you have it, folks. Tonight's night-ending bonus upload, the upload before the live stream. I hope to see you all there, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps the channel growing and going. And honestly, what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free. Just treated with the respect that we all deserve. Thank you. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events are real. This stuff is out there. It's happening. Share this with your friends and family and those that you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions. Never stop searching for the truth or the answers. And God bless.